Hey CanHammer fans, welcome back to your source for 40k from the Great White North. Today we have a read-along of the new Codex for Astra Militarum, or I may occasionally refer to them as Imperial Guard. I'm very excited about this book. I recently just started doing Astra Militarum, as you know if you've been following my work in progress videos. I just love the catechins. I love the Rambo look of the catechins. That literally is what has drawn me into Astra Militarum. And then I love how Imperium right now is so soupy that I can use whatever I want, that I like the look of, or that I think is strong, and put it all together. And so we'll see if this book makes a case for staying pure. I haven't found a lot of other things so far out of the armies that I played that make me want to stay pure. But starting this catechin army is really exciting. I love the models, and so I'm very excited for this book. So let's get started. As usual, we're going to skip the fluff, but I will be reading this as I've never read Imperial Guard fluff, and I really just kind of want to learn about it. And the history of the catechins and stuff. We know a lot about Cadia now, thanks to the Fall of Cadia series, but not a lot about the catechins and stuff, so I will be reading through this stuff eventually on my own. But for now, we're going to pass through all that stuff. Alright, so how can you not love the catechins? Look at these Rambo guys. It's just awesome. I love the look of the catechins. So good. Alright, so here we go, straight into the rules. So they all have regiment keyword, and of course the regiments will all share their particular special regiment abilities, which is kind of like chapter tactics but for guard. I suspect that every faction will get it, but it'll be interesting to see what happens to the factions that are single army, like Dark Angels or Space Wolves. Like, will they get separate tactics, or will that whole book just get one tactic? It'll be interesting to see. But yeah, so also here, so they've kept Militarum Tempestus as a keyword, and treat this as a regiment keyword in all respects, but the Militarum Tempestus keyword cannot be used to replace the regiment keyword on any other data sheet. For example, if you include a command squad in your army and wanted them to be Vestroya, their regiment faction keyword is changed to Vestroyan. And their regimental standard ability would say all friendly Vestroyan units add 1 to their leadership whilst they're within. Okay, so basically what it's telling you is that you can include Astra Militarum Tempestus units in your regiment, but they lose Militarum Tempestus as a keyword because they have their own benefits, and they gain whatever regiment that you want them to be. So you can still mix in your scions with your guard. Okay, so voice of command is unchanged. Orders within 6 inches. 1 order per turn can be infected, and here are the orders, which I believe are basically unchanged. So reroll once to hit. First round, second round fire is the same. Bring it down. Forward for the Emperor. Get back in the fight. Move, move, move. Fix bayonets. Okay, so the orders are unchanged from the index. Okay, so now you can also have what's called regimental orders. So regimental orders, many Astra Militarum units maintain specialized training regimes. The table below contains additional orders for use with the voice of command ability for the appropriate regiment. For example, catechin officers may issue the catechin burn them out order in addition to any of the standard orders. Some of the orders below are noted as being tank orders. These may only be issued by tank commander with the appropriate regiment keyword. Okay, so here we go. So the Cadian tank order is pound them to dust. For the duration of this phase, you can reroll the dice when determining the number of attacks the ordered model can make with turret weapons. As described in the grinding advance ability above, they use a randomly determined number. Okay, so grinding advance, might as well read that now. Grinding advance at the top here. Lehman Russ tank's sturdy frame allows them to keep up fierce and move. If the model moves under half speed in its movement phase, it can shoot its turret weapon twice in the following shooting phase. That's pretty good. The turret weapon must target the same unit both times. Okay. Furthermore, hit rolls for this model's turret weapon do not suffer the penalty for moving and shooting a heavy weapon. The following weapons are turret weapons. So Battle Cannon, Eradicator, Exterminator, Vanquisher, Demolisher, Executioner, and Punisher. Cool. Now, people have been arguing online whether not moving counts as moving less than 0. I would probably say that it does, just by using common sense. But there have been people arguing the semantics of 0, is that moving or not moving, because it also means not moving for certain rules such as -1 to hit and stuff like that. So I don't know, that probably needs an FAQ, but seems pretty obvious. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So Lehman Russ tanks can fire twice and they reroll their variable hit rolls. That's pretty good if you're running a Cadian tank army. So catechins is burn them out. Reroll the dice when determining number of attacks with flamers and heavy flamers until the end of the phase. Units targeted by models from the ordered unit with these weapons don't gain cover. Okay, that's pretty good if you're using flamers and heavy flamers. Maybe that's going to be good if start running Hellhounds, because I think those probably don't count as flamers, to be honest. Just flamers and heavy flamers, so not that good. Valhallan, fire on my command. The ordered unit can shoot at enemy units that are within 1 inch of friendly units until the end of the phase, but each time you roll a hit roll of 1, you hit your own people. You can't do that if you're actually within 1 inch. Okay, so this allows you to shoot into combat with the chance of hitting your own person. That could be good if you just got a whole bunch of conscripts locked in with something that you really want to kill. So you kill a few conscripts, no big deal, but you get to put a whole bunch of shots into that locked in enemy model, which is pretty good. Vestroians, I love Vestroians. Let's see if we can get some pictures of Vestroians. The only problem with these other regiments is it's so hard to get their models. You have to get them off eBay or secondhand, even though they're so cool. At least Catechins and Cadians you can still buy. But the other regiments are so difficult to get. Who's that? So these guys are the Vestroians. They're like the kind of Cossack sort of Russian theme guys. Very cool, but again, it's hard to get the models. And the Valhallans are, there's no pictures of Valhallans, but they're pretty cool too. They're the snow guys. And the Talarn are the desert guys. Very cool. Okay, Armageddon, which used to be Steel Legion, I think, is now called Armageddon. Mount up until the end phase. Yeah, the ordered unit can shoot and then immediately embark as long as all models in the unit are within 3 inches of the vehicle. That's pretty cool. You can't do this if they disembarked in that phase, in that turn, so that's too bad. Talarn tank order. Get around behind them. The ordered model can move up to 6 inches in this phase, either before or after it shoots as if it were the movement phase. This does not affect how far the vehicle has moved for the purpose of determining how many times it can fire its turret weapons, like for grinding advance. Cool. In Militarum Tempestus, elimination protocol sanctioned. You can reroll failed wound rolls for models from the ordered unit when attacking any enemy vehicles or monsters. Okay, that's pretty cool. So you drop down your scions, you give them this order, their plasma now normally wounding on 3s most of the time, maybe 5s or 4s, get to reroll failed wound rolls, and if you're hitting vehicles, that's pretty good. And Mordians, which are the guys with like the blue regimental uniforms, form firing squad. Until the end of the phase, the ordered unit can target characters with their rapid fire weapons, even if they're not the closest enemy unit. So we already heard about this one. This seems pretty good, but you do have to build a strategy in order to employ it. But still, you could catch the unawares player off. All right, let's move on to the sheets. If anything changes, I'll let you know. I think most of the things are unchanged, so I'm not going to belabor going through every single sheet. Of note, the company commander came down to 2 power from 3, but otherwise unchanged. Tank commanders came down from 13 power to 12, but again, otherwise unchanged, and the tank commands are the same. Knight Commander Pask is unchanged. So they've put all the, they've made it a little bit easier. They've put all the characters and stuff at the front. It does make it a little bit harder to compare people, because I have to jump back and forth in the index. So Yarick seems like he's pretty much unchanged, has the same rules, and the Lord Commissar is unchanged as well. Strachan. Strachan went down to 4 power. You know, a lot of things in all the different kind of codexes went down 1 power. I don't think it's a big deal. And Harker, no, Harker's not here. Tempestor Prime, okay. Tempestor Prime's unchanged. Primaris Psyker, I think he's unchanged. Anyway, infantry squads, unchanged, and now heavy weapons teams. Guardsman, sergeant, heavy weapons team. Interesting, okay. Okay, now conscripts. So conscripts have changed. They didn't get nerfed in terms of points. They're still 3 power. I wonder if that actually went up.
No, it's not been up for a while, okay?
Mm-hmm. No, conscripts are 3 power, yes. But here's how they've changed. So now when you voice a command them, you have to roll a 4+ in order for it to work. And if it doesn't, they can't have any other orders this turn. Otherwise, they're completely unchanged. So, oh yeah, the other change is that you can have only up to 30 conscripts instead of going up to 50 conscripts. So that's not a huge deal, to be honest. 30 conscripts is probably a nice number. And yeah, so then we have Scions. Scions have unchanged in terms of what they do, but their weapons have changed, as we'll see later. The Rough Riders are gone. That's in the index on this page and no longer in the index. That was a problem for some people from the Forged Narrative. Master of Ordnance. I don't know if these things have changed or not. If you know these sheets, you can definitely check them out. I'll just skip over them for now. Here's Sergeant Harker. So I believe Sergeant Harker is unchanged. Command Squad, unchanged data sheet wise. And so here, so the Adeptum Ministorum has been put into this codex in the Astra Militarum Adeptus Ministorum, which I believe they were before. Yeah, they were all Astra Militarum Adeptus Ministorum before. So they've just reorganized the whole thing. So your Ministorum priest is here, and he's unchanged. He still adds an attack for Astra Militarum and Adeptus Ministorum. And yeah, Crusaders. Now, let's look at this. I haven't looked at the Crusader in a long time. Let's have a look. Okay, Crusaders, acts of faith. Okay, so what's interesting is the Crusader has lost the act of faith. Unless they've done that with all the, well, I don't know, because the sisters aren't in this codex, but so they've lost, they used, in the index they just had the act of faith rule, which let them use the sisters' acts of faith. Now, since there's, I guess they have their own act of faith, and each Crusader unit gets it on a 2+, they can perform this act of faith. Either immediately move, immediately shoot, pile in, or heal D3, or return a single model. So they have their own Act of Faith on their own data slate, which means they can use it even if they're not part of a sister's detachment, which is cool. And they have Shield of Faith, and they have, yeah, so they've kind of able to use their own Act of Faith. Tech Priest, Engine Seer, and Servitors. So that's interesting. So the Tech Priest Engine Seer, which of course is from the Mechanicus, is now showing up in this this codex, because before it was Astra Militarum as well as Adeptus Mechanicus and Cult Mechanicus, and now it's here. So, and Servitors, Commissar is unchanged. And they didn't nerf the Commissar effect on conscript blobs, so that was something that people complained about. Officer of the Fleet and Weird Vein Psychers. Astropath, 1 power now, 1 power elite. And Ogrins, I don't know if they've changed or not, but their data sheets are here for your pleasure. And Ratlings. Okay, so the Hellhound is a little bit cooler now because these 2d6 and d6 heavy flamers and all those things, if you're catechin, can be rolled. So the catechin allows them to re-roll 1 of the dice on variable weapons. It allows them to re-roll wounds on the flamers. So it makes Hellhounds a little bit better. They're still more expensive than Sentinels. So, but you know, a 16-inch heavy 2d6 where you're re-rolling 1 of the d6 is pretty good. And it's a strength 6 flamer as opposed to just being strength 5. So they're not bad now, Hellhounds. Let's see. Let's make sure they haven't changed. 7 toughness, 11 wounds. So they're not any different from before. In terms of the weapons, okay. So the Infernal Cannon used to be heavy D6, but 2 damage. And now it's heavy 2d6, but 1 damage. Interesting. Okay. I don't know how that maths out. I guess with your ability to re-roll 1 of those d6 in terms of determining number of shots will help you. They also went up a power, so it'll be interesting to see what happens to their points. Let's look at the Sentinels. I don't believe that they've changed. 9-inch movement. No, so Sentinels have not changed on their datasheet, and you there have the armored Sentinels. Heavy weapons teams are the same. And Basilisk. So I think the Basilisk is the same Earthshaker Heavy D6, yeah. But of course now if you're a catechin, you can re-roll that. So artillery is just a little bit better as catechins. And the Wyverns, of course, you can re-roll 1 of the D6 on the 46. Hydras. Have you yet to see any Hydras in play? And the Manticore. Death Strike. Leman Russ. Alright, let's see if the Leman Russ has actually changed. So their power came down, but otherwise the stats are the same. And let's look at their weapons, because I guess some of these weapons might change. No, it doesn't look like they have. The weapons are pretty much the same. Plasma Cannon, Vanquisher, Heavy 1. Yeah. Okay, so weapons are the same and they have the same rules, except now Grinding Advance is a blank rule for everything at the front of the book and not in the sheet itself. Okay. Chimera, probably unchanged. The Torox is probably unchanged. I kind of have an idea of what's changed and unchanged just from listening to podcasts recently. So the Torox Prime is unchanged. Hotshot Volley Gun Heavy 4. Yeah, same as it was before. 4 minus 2, 1. Gatling Cannon Heavy 20. Yeah, okay. So Taurus Prime's unchanged. And Valkyries. Now I heard that the Super Heavies changed to make them more attractive. So the Baneblade went down 2 in power. It's the same stat line, but I think the cannon changed. So the cannon went from heavy 2d6, 9 minus 3, 3 damage, to heavy 3d6. Whoa. So that's an average of 7. It's an average of 10 hits, strength 9 minus 3, 3 damage. Wow. That could do a lot of damage on the Baneblade. That is pretty crazy. I wonder what happened to the points, but it definitely, the cannon got an extra d6 worth of shots. So the Baneblade is definitely cool. Banehammer is the same. Let's see, what's its weapon? Tremor Cannon, heavy 3. Okay, so the Tremor Cannon went from heavy 2d6 to heavy 3d6 as well. 8 minus 2, 3. So there's another extra d6 for the Banehammer. Bane Sword has a Quake Cannon, which went from heavy d6 to heavy 2d6. So it seems like a pattern. All the super heavies gained an extra d6. The Doomhammer Magma Cannon went from heavy d6 to heavy 2d6. So there we go. Heavy 2d6, strength 10, minus 5 d6 damage. That's a lot of shots. All these have gotten a little bit better. Hellhammer. The Hellhammer has a Demolisher Cannon and a Hellhammer Cannon. Hellhammer Cannon went up to 3d6 from 2d6, and the Demolisher is the same. Hellhammer Cannon, strength 10, minus 4, 3 damage. It's kind of hard to tell all these apart, to be honest. The weapons are all very similar. And the Shadow Sword Tank Killer Volcano Cannon went from heavy D6 to heavy 3D3. Okay, so that's 2, that's 6. Okay, so that's better for sure. That's an average of 6 hits, 6 shots instead of an average of 3 or 4 shots. Strength 16 minus 5, 2d6 damage, reroll wounds against Titanic. So this is still the one-shot thing for Knights and other tanks, and it's even more so now. And it went down in power. I wonder if it went down in points. So this is even worse now for Knights facing off against a Shadow Sword. Stormlord, which is the one with the twin Vulcan Mega Bolters. If it doesn't move, it goes to this is the one where it increases. No, I'm thinking of the Macarius that doubles its shots if it doesn't move. So the Stormlord doesn't do that. Heavy 20, and it was still heavy 20. So the Stormlord hasn't changed, came down in power. The Storm Sword, which has the Storm Sword Siege Cannon, this went heavy 2d6 from heavy d6. So it seems like the Stormlord is the only one that hasn't changed right now. And that's it. That's all the units in the Codex. Okay, let's skip to the points before we do the other stuff. And let's just give you an update on the points. Okay, so Sentinels are the same. Astropath, Astropath is the same. Baneblade 390. So the Baneblade went down 40 points and got better. The Banehammer went down 20 points and got better. The Bane Sword is the same. Basilisks are unchanged. Bulgrins are unchanged. Chimeras, command squad, commissars are the same price. Company commander, same price. Conscripts, same price, which some people argued they should have gone up to 4. Crusaders, that's a different part. So Death Strike, 155. The Doom Hammer is the same price. Heavy weapon squads are 6 points each now instead of 4. So heavy weapons, mortar teams and stuff have gone up by 50% to 6 points from 4 points. And so that makes so that's 18 points then for the squad instead of 12. So that's a 6 point increase in the squad, and we'll see what the mortars went up. I heard they went up. Hellhammer went down 40 points. Hellhounds are the same. Hydras went down 15 points. Doesn't mean anybody's going to take them. Infantry squads unchanged. Pask unchanged. Leman Russ tanks went down from 132 to 122. So they're a lot cheaper. They're looking very attractive. Manticores are unchanged. Lord Commissar. Master of Ordnance went down 2 points. Tempestus squads, same. Scions, same. The Ministorum Priest, I think, is the same. Officer of the Fleet, Ogren Bodyguards, and Ogrins. Oh, Ogren Bodyguard, I guess, is a new unit. We didn't spend any time looking at that, but that's a new unit. It's just a one thing. Well, let's go back. I didn't realize that was a new unit. Okay, so Ogren Bodyguard is an elite, just a single model. It has the same characteristics as an Ogren, but 1 extra leadership and 1 extra attack and 3 extra wounds. It has a Ripper gun, a knife, and frag bombs. And the Ripper gun is the same as the normal Ripper gun. And it has all the usual Ogren rules, Avalanche of Muscle. It has a 4+ invuln save because it has the Brute Shield. It has and the Bodyguard rules. So roll a d6 each time a friendly Militarum character loses a wound while within 3 inches of the model. On a 3+, the character does not lose the wound, and then the Bodyguard gets a mortal wound. And the Slab Shield, add 2 to any save rolls for a model equipped with a Slab Shield. There you go. And a Slab Shield is 0 points. So there you go. You might as well take it. There's no reason not to. Okay, so there we go. That's the Ogrins. Platoon Commander unchanged. Primaire Psykers the same. Ratlings are the same. Rough Riders no longer here. Scout Sentinels the same. Servitors. Shadow Sword 390 from 430. So the Shadow Sword got 40 points cheaper. Special Weapon Squad same. Storm Lord is the same, and the Storm Sword is the same. Tank Commander unchanged. The Torox went from 55 to 40, and the Torox Prime went up from 60 to 65. Tech Priest and Tempestor Prime is unchanged. Valkyries, I think it's probably, yeah, Valkyries went down from 130 to 110. Veterans are the same, and Wyverns are the same. The characters, so Strachan went down 90 to 75. Kel, Yarick, Kesselin, Creed, Nork, and Harker. Nobody other characters changed. Ranged weapons, I think, are same price. Let's see. Just quickly skimming through, I believe it is basically unchanged. Heavy bolter, flamers, 20. Las guns. Hot shot volley guns went down from 9 to 6. Let's see. Melta cannon. Melta Cannon went from 35 down to 20. Mortars are now 5 points each still. So mortars didn't go up, so therefore it's still 15. So it's just a 6 points extra for a mortar team. I still think they're very worth it for what they do. Plasma cannon. Okay, so the plasma gun has changed, and this is how they tried to nerf the Scions a little bit. If you have a plasma gun with a 4+ ballistic skill, it's still only 7 points. But if you have a plasma gun with 3+ ballistic skill, or better than that, like Scions who shoot on 3+, now it's almost double at 13 points. So that does increase your Scions and command squad cost significantly by an extra 624 points. So something to consider, but I still think they're good. And I think most of the other points look about the same. Okay. So there you go. Those are the points values. So let's go look at all the nice new shinies. Okay, so here's where we get into the good stuff. So first of all troops and Leman Rus get OBSEC. So that's awesome. You could run a tank army and you don't lose out on OBSEC because your tanks are OBSEC. That's awesome. Regimental doctrines are like the chapter tactics. Okay, so the regimental doctrines are your chapter tactics for guard. So here it says that Militarum Tempestus can be included in Astra Militarum detachments without preventing other units from gaining their doctrine. However, they don't get their Militarum Tempestus doctrines. Only if you're in their own detachment with all Militarum Tempestus. Okay, advisors and auxiliaries. The units listed below can be included in Astra Militarum detachment without preventing other units from getting their doctrines. This includes the Tech Press Enginseer, Servitors, Ministorum Priest, Crusaders, Aeronautica Imperialis units, Militarum Auxilia units, Officio Perfectus units, and the Psychana division. So basically everything that was in the index that's not necessarily in here, or some of the stuff that is in here, you can still put it in your guard detachment and not lose your doctrines. Command squads. If you're playing a battle match play with a battle-forged army, you can maximum include 1 command squad for each officer in that detachment. Similarly, if you're playing a matched play game, then at Battle4, you can include a maximum of 1 Militarum Tempestus command squad for each domestic crime. Okay, so that FAQ they've put in here in the Codex, and that is there. So I guess that shows that they didn't finalize this till at least after that FAQ was released, which wasn't that long ago. So that's interesting. Because if they had this in the Codex and this Codex was written a long time ago, then they wouldn't have had to FAQ it. One would assume. So anyway, okay, so let's go on to the doctrines. So these are the chapter tactics for guard. So Cadians are born soldiers. Reroll hit rolls of 1 in the shooting phase for units if they did not move in the previous movement phase. So keep in mind the doctrines is just for if an army's battle force, all units in an Astra Militarum detachment gain a regimental doctrine so long as every unit in that detachment is drawn. Okay, so that's cool. It affects everybody, whereas like Space Marine chapter tactics only affect infantry, bikers, and dreadnoughts. So anyway, so all Cadians reroll hit rolls of 1 if they didn't move. If an infantry unit is issued take aim order and did not move, it gets to reroll all failed hit rolls instead of just reroll hit rolls of 1. So that's pretty cool. That's always useful to have built. If you're running Cadians, you have built-in rerolls of 1 without needing any characters. Catechins, brutal strength. Infantry units add 1 to their strength and 1 to their leadership if they're within 6 inches of an officer. Every time a vehicle fires a ranged weapon that makes a random number of attacks, heavy D6, heavy 2D6, you can re-roll 1 of the dice used to determine the number of attacks made. I think that's very strong. It just maximizes your variables, hits, shooting, which is a lot in Guard. Not a lot of Guard has set number of shots, as a lot of it is D6, D3, 2D6, 3D6, and that really helps. Adding 1 to strength of infantry doesn't seem strong, but if you run Ogrins or Bogrins, that probably can make a big difference. And if you're running mass conscripts and you actually need to kill something, strength 4 conscripts is much more scary than strength 3 conscripts. So, strength 4 conscripts can hit a tank and wound a tank on 5s, whereas strength 3 conscripts need 6s. That's a big difference. So I don't think that that's not good. I don't think it's super strong, but it can make a difference, I think. So Valhallans, infantry units have the number of models that flee, rounding up if they fail a morale test. That's good. Vehicles with this doctrine have a damage table, double the number of wounds they have remaining for the purpose of what their characteristics are. Okay, so if you're running Valhallan vehicles, they degrade, I guess, half, or maybe just under half as quickly. So even if they're down to, say, a Chimera with 10 wounds goes down to 5, it still doesn't degrade because it still counts as 10. So you have to kill twice the number of wounds in order to start degrading Valhallan vehicle, which is pretty good. Certainly something to consider if you're running like a tank army, like a Leman Russ. A whole bunch of Leman Russ tanks that got cheaper, that have grinding advance, that maintain their shooting capabilities for twice as long is pretty scary. Vestroians. Units with this doctrine can add 6 inches to the maximum range of heavy or rapid fire weapons. They would normally have a range of 24 inches or more. Okay, situational, I guess. Armageddon. Infantry units with this doctrine may double the number of attacks they make with rapid fire weapons at a range of up to 18 inches rather than half the weapon's range as normal. Vehicles treat AP-1 as AP-0. Okay, again, situational, not the strongest here. Talarn, swift as the wind. Infantry units can advance and still shoot with everything other than weapon types, and when they do, they don't get the penalty, and vehicles don't suffer the penalty when moving and firing heavy weapons. Titanic vehicles advances and treats all heavy weapons as assault weapons. Okay, so that's pretty good. It makes your guard faster and more deadly, and that's always useful. So the Tempestus gets stormtroopers. A model with this doctrine is shooting at a target at half range. It can make an extra shot with the same weapon if it's a hit roll of 6+. Extra shots do not generate any more shots. Okay, so you're dropping in your Scions, you're at half range on your plasma, and any 6s give you an extra shot. That's pretty good. And Mordian, Parade Drill. If the base of every model in an infantry unit with this doctrine is touching the base of at least one other model from the same unit, the unit has a +1 leadership, and you can add 1 to hit rolls for models in that unit when firing Overwatch. And for vehicles as well. Okay, that's pretty good. You have to clump your guys together and make sure they're all touching, which unfortunately makes playing a large bunch of Mordian infantry models a little bit more cumbersome because you got to make sure they're all touching. And there's no templates or anything, so usually that doesn't really matter. So stratagems. Okay, well, let's go over some of these stratagems. Vortex missile for death strike missiles. Fire on my position. Use the stratagem when the last model is slain from a unit from your army equipped with a Voxcaster. Okay. Crush them. So this is select Astra Militarum vehicle if this vehicle can charge even if it advanced. It's interesting, and it hits on a 2+. Okay. Keep in mind, Guard often will have lots. I mean, you run a brigade, and that's 9 CP right there. So CP is not really going to be a big deal for Guard. Aerial Spotter. Use this as a shot in your shooting phase, select a Basilisk or a Wyvern. You rerolled hit rolls. Jury Rigging. So this is one that's been talked about. Consolidate squads. For 1 CP, use this stratagem at the end of your movement phase. Choose an infantry squad from page 93 from your army that is within 2 inches of another of your infantry squads from the same regiment, and you can merge them into a single unit for the rest of the battle. Okay, so it specifies page 93. So some people have been arguing that this is infantry keyword, okay? And so that you could do this with conscripts, which funnily enough they put on page 93 as well. But it quite clearly puts infantry squad in capitals. So I think that refers to these guys, okay? So if you're coming to my tournament and you're trying to merge your conscripts, that's no go. It's got to be these guys, okay? And yeah, they can only come in squads of 10 and you can merge them into a super squad, but it's going to cost you a CP every time. You have a lot of CP probably, but still, that's something to consider. Imperial Commander's Armory. So this is the relic stratagem that all armies have been getting to take more than one relic. Officio Perfectus Command Tank. Let's see what else is going on here. Preliminary Bombardment. So what do you think of this? So for 2 CP, after everybody's deployed, but before the battle round begins, roll a dice for each enemy unit on the battlefield. On a 6, they suffer a mortal wound. You can only use this once per battle. So for 2 CP, would you... I guess it depends on how many models your opponents have on the board, but just to put in a mortal here and there, that might be useful. For each enemy unit, you know, so that includes characters, which is a unit in itself. So you know that might actually be pretty decent for 2 CP, and if you got like 12, 13, 14 CP, why not? Inspired Tactics. Okay, so defensive gunners for 1 CP. Astra Militarum vehicle units can fire Overwatch hitting on a 5 or 6. So I think Dark Angels, I bet you Dark Angels are going to get a 2 CP or a 1 CP stratagem where they get full ballistic skill Overwatch for a phase. Taking bets now. Grenadiers, fight to the death. This is interesting. So go recon. 1 CP in the stratagem at the start of your shooting phase. Select a unit of scout sentinels. This unit can immediately move 2d6 but cannot shoot or charge. That might be useful. Turn 5, you need to get your sentinel on something if it's still alive. Volley fire. Okay, so these are your regiment-specific stratagems. Mordians get volley fire. Each time you make a hit roll of 6+, that model can immediately shoot again with the same weapon. Cadians get overlapping fire. Use this stratagem after a Cadian unit has inflicted an unsaved wound on an enemy unit in the shooting phase. Add 1 to hit rolls for any other Cadian unit that target the same enemy. Valhallans, send in the next wave. Select a Valhallan infantry unit from your army, excluding characters and infantry squads that have used the combined squads stratagem early in battle. That was destroyed. Set up this unit wholly within your deployment zone within 6 inches of the edge of the battlefield, more than 9 inches. So that's the recycling soldiers kind of stratagem that people seem to be getting these days for 2 CP. Superior intelligence is the Tempestus. Immediately after your opponent sets up a unit that is arriving on the battlefield within 12 inches of Tempestus infantry, you can shoot at them. So that's Interceptor for Militarum Tempestus. Ambush. So for 3 CP, the Talarn, used during deployment, choose up to 3 Talarn units to set up an ambush instead of placing them on the battlefield. At the end of any of your movement phases, these units can strike from hiding. Set them up wholly within 7 inches of any battlefield edge and more than 9 inches from any enemy models. And Talarn have the tank stuff, I think. So that's pretty interesting. 3 CP for 3 models, 3 units, instead of doing them individually like Raven Guard. Armored Fist. And Vicious Traps is the Catechin one. This is interesting. So use this stratagem when an enemy unit finishes a charge move within 1 inch of a Catechin unit from your army that's within or on a terrain feature. Roll a dice on a 4+, they suffer D3 wounds. That's not bad for 1 CP. Alright, let's talk about the Psychana discipline. So, let's see which ones were from the index. I think I may have passed. Ah, here we go. Okay, so Psychana Division, Terrifying Visions is the one from the index. Gaze at Emperor is also from the index, and Psychic Bearer is that +1 to save, also from the index. So the new ones are Night Shroud. Night Shroud has a warp charge value of 6. If manifested, choose Astra Militarum unit within 12 inches of the Psyker until the start of your next turn. Enemy units that target the chosen unit suffer -1 penalty to hit with ranged hit rolls. So any Astra Militarum unit. So that's interesting. So on a 6, casting of 6, you could give someone -1 to hit. Cast it on your super heavies. That's pretty good. Mental Fortitude. So it has a warp charge of 4. A friendly unit within 12 inches. That unit automatically passes morale. Whoa. Okay. So a casting cost of 4. You'd be pretty unlucky to fail it. This will go off, and one unit within 12 inches automatically passes morale. And these guys, Primaire Psyker is 28, 12, 40 points. So just a little bit more than a Commissar, and you don't even have to kill anybody. That's really good. That is really good, I think, for a casting cost of 4. Yeah, that's pretty good. Psychic Maelstrom, warp charge of 7. Pick an enemy unit within 18 inches, roll a d6. On a 2+, that unit suffers a mortal wound. Unless this mortal wound is negated, you can then roll another dice on a 3+, a mortal wound, so on, 4+, 5+. That's pretty cool. That's an interesting way of doing some wounds, although it may be more efficient just to smite. That's always the problem, eh? Is it more efficient just to smite? But sometimes if you want to hit something that's not the closest thing, then that's when these powers come into play. Okay, let's talk about some relics. Apparently the relics are not that good. The weapon ones always tend not to be that good. Laurels of Command. Officer with a voice of command ability only. Roll a dice every time you issue a command. On a 4+, you can issue another command immediately to the same unit. That's pretty cool. And that doesn't count towards the maximum number that you can issue. So our accompanying commander could issue 3 commands with this relic, and your conscripts could take 2 orders, which is pretty cool. Death Mask of Olanis. 4+ invuln, and you regain D3 wounds. Okay, well, none of your characters are going to be like that hardy anyway. So the Dagger of Tusak. Apparently this is good. So during deployment, you can set up the bear and 1 infantry unit from your enemy far behind enemy lines. At the end of your movement phase, these units can launch their attack. Set them up within 3 inches of each other, anywhere on the battlefield, wholly within 6 inches of the edge and more than 9 inches from the enemy. Okay, so this is just a relic that lets you infiltrate 2 units. Infantry unit, 1 infantry unit. No, the deployment, you can set up the bearer and an infantry unit. So you put this on a character that you want to infiltrate with an infantry unit, and it had to be the same regiment. Okay, not bad. Guess you could put like 30 conscripts behind enemy lines with a commissar as a distraction. That could be decent, I guess. You could leave them off the table till turn 3, and then they come in the backfield and stick on an objective. That's got its uses. Kurov's Aquila is the one apparently everyone's going to take. Officers only. Each time your opponent uses a stratagem, roll a d6. On a 5+, you gain a command point. That is so good. Gilliman was given it, and everybody's gaining their command points back, and now everyone kind of has some way of doing that. So that is really good. I think that is definitely a relic to take. 5+, you get a command point every time they use a stratagem. Let's see what else is here. These are all just mostly the weapons. The specific ones, let's see. Catachin specific one is the Mamorph Tusk Blade. Power sword only, replace the model's power sword, and it's basically a +2 strength, -3 AP, 2 damage power sword. Okay, no biggie. Tactical Auto Reliquary of Tiberius allows you to give an extra order to Tempestus models, but on a 2+. And yeah. Okay, Warlord traits. So as usual, there are generic Warlord traits. Then there are Warlord traits that you can take if you're from a specific regiment, and then the name characters have to take specific ones. So, so the only one is Yarrick. He has to take Master of Command Warlord trait. Okay, so Grand Strategist. So whilst your Warlord is alive, you can reroll a single hit roll, wound roll, saving throw per battle. In addition, if your army is battle forged and the Warlord's on the battlefield, command points. Roll a dice for each command point spent when using stratagems. On a 5+, that command point is immediately refunded. Oh, so good. And this is for each command point. So if I spend 3 CPs, I have to roll 3 dice, and on any 5+, I get those back. It's so good, so good. Okay, Old Grudges. After deployment, but before the first battle round begins, choose a unit in your opponent's army. You can reroll failed wound rolls against that unit if they're within 6 inches. Okay, not that good. Implacable Determination. When your Warlord and a single friendly unit within 3 inches of them advance, they can add 6 to their move characteristic instead of rolling. Draconian Disciplinarian. Reroll fail morale tests. Bellowing Voice. Add 3 inches to the range of any Warlord datasheet, such as Voice of Command. Master of Command. Your Warlord gains the Voice of Command ability. If your Warlord already has Voice of Command or tank orders, they may instead issue 1 additional. Okay, and Yarrick gets that one. So none of these beat this CP regenerating, because then you just spam your CP on stratagems continuously, and you're going to get them back. Your opponents using stratagems, you get them back on a 5+. You're getting your CPs back on a 5+, 30% of the time. Oh man, that's so good. Okay, Regimental Warlord traits. So the Cadian one, Superior Tactical Training. Roll a dice each time your Warlord issues an order or tank order on 4+, can affect an additional unit within 6 inches of the Warlord. That's decent, but still not as good as that. Catachin, lead from the front. The Warlord can perform a heroic intervention if, after the enemy has completed all charge moves that are within 6 inches of an enemy, the Warlord can agree. Okay, I'm not even going to finish reading that because that's not as good as that. I'm not performing heroic interventions with my Commissar or my Company Commander or Harker. Valhallans are tenacious. Roll a dice each time your Warlord suffers a wound or mortal wound. He gets a 5+, feel no pain. And if he's a vehicle, he ignores it on a 6+. That's not bad. Still not as good as that. Vestroyan. Reroll failed hit and wound rolls in the fight phase for your Warlord. That really sucks. That's better. Armageddon, ex-gang leader. Add 1 to this Warlord's attack characteristics and add 1 to any wound rolls made by your Warlord in the fight phase. Again, that's way better. Talarn, swift attacker. Your Warlord and all friendly Talarn units within 6 inches of them can charge even if they fell back. That's decent, but not as good as that. Tempestus, faithful servants. Your Warlord can attempt to deny 1 psychic power in the psychic phase as if he was a psyker. Not bad, not as good as that. Mordian, roll a dice for each model that flees from any friendly Mordian units within 6 inches. On a 4+, the model does not flee. That's good. Still not as good as that. All right, so take this one. And here are the points. Okay, well, that's the end of the Guard book. Astra Militarum were already strong. They've been dominating the meta in a lot of the big tournaments, and this only made them stronger. The stratagems are good. The limitless regeneration seemingly of command points, meaning spamming of stratagems. Conscripts got a little bit nerfed, but not nerfed enough for their real purpose, which is just as chaff and screen. And Lehman Russ tanks got a lot better. All the super heavies got better and cheaper. So this just made Guard better. And so much better. I think this certainly is not going to do anything to turning down the Guard meta right now. So I hope you enjoyed that read along. Please stay tuned for all other content here on YouTube. Please consider supporting us on patreon.com. Patrons do get t-shirts and dice and guaranteed access to all our tournaments, as well as free entry if you support us at the top level. All our patrons also get 5% off Wargames orders from wargames.co.uk, courtesy of Martin, who's one of our newest patrons. So thank you very much, Martin. And just to let you guys know that we'll be turning P&P into a bi-monthly GT, hopefully. So for people who come out to P&P, may be worth getting your free entry by becoming a patron. So thanks very much, and see you next time.